Iggy Ministries Studios today on The Difference. Two women, two amazing stories of hope and survival.
I can't control what happened to them yesterday, but today, tonight, I know they're safe. I know their needs are met. I know that they are being cared for unconditionally, and that is what keeps me going.
My dad was an abusive alcoholic, and I ended up being sexually abused by him from the time my first memory was 4 years old.
How do you bring healing to a child or young adult that has been abandoned, left alone, and filled with hopelessness? Today on The Difference, we welcome Tara Roussett and Lisa Michelle, two women making a difference in the lives of children and young adults affected by trauma, abuse, and neglect.
Back in high school, I really had a passion for just working with friends that maybe came from a different background than I did. I certainly didn't have a most perfect life growing up, but I had a really good life. My parents are still married. I know what a happy childhood is. I'm grateful for the childhood that I had, and so I really have always identified with people who maybe had something different than me. I was a stay-at-home mom, and someone that I had worked with previously at a different facility worked here at SJRC, and he reached out to me and kind of said, what are you doing nowadays? And I told him I'm staying home and I'm happy and I'm raising my family. And he said, why don't you come back and help me at SJRC, help me with the girls' home. And at that time, I said, okay, I'll do it. It worked with my family, it worked with my schedule. I really just wanted to serve at a direct care level. We are 24/7, 365, taking care of the most vulnerable population of children and families. And so it's just kind of weaved into what I believe and what I cherish and value with the families. I certainly don't know the struggle that these girls and these families have gone through, and I admire their strength, but I do know what it's like to have goodness and to have happiness. I feel like with my gifts that God has given me, I am able to lead this organization today with the support of the staff that's here, my family. It's kind of everybody together that got me where I'm at right now. So what I always say is I can't control what happened to them yesterday, and I can't control what happens to them tomorrow, but today, tonight, I know they're safe. I know their needs are met. I know that they are being cared for unconditionally. They're learning how to build trust. They're learning how to be valued for who they are as humans, and that is what keeps me going.
Kendall and I are so glad to welcome to The Difference Tara Roussett, the leader of SJRC. Tara, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so blessed to be here.
Well, we're honored to have you sit and share some of the stories of SJRC with our audience. I became aware of your work as we started to investigate how we could be more effective in the work we're doing at the Sanctuary of Hope. And what I became aware of is something that you've been involved in for a long time, which is the vast amount of need that is represented to young people, young ladies, young boys in areas where they need a safe environment to grow up because they currently don't live in one. How is SJRC working on that issue every day?
And what is SJRC first?
Sure. So SJRC was formerly known as St. Jude's Ranch for Children, but we go by SJRC Texas now. And what we do is we take care of all the needs of kids in the foster care system, survivors of child sex trafficking. Yeah. We do in-home parenting prevention classes. We have an array of services in the child welfare system. But at the heart of the work that we do is we're providing healing and hope. We meet the kids where they're at every day. We take it to the most basic level of looking each other in the eye and having eye contact and just really celebrating the preciousness of the child, of who they are. And they're broken. They've seen things that I can't even imagine, that I don't ever want to imagine, but we're giving them that chance at that true childhood that they so deserve.
And in the years that you've operated in this area, I'm certain that there has been so many things that have evolved, because as you talk about providing healing and hope, that was always the root cause. That was always the desire from day one. But as you even mentioned the work that SJRC Texas is doing, you're now going into areas to try and do preventative work so that these problems don't start. that probably wasn't something that was done decades ago.
No, and in fact, for our organization, we've been around 35 years, and just this year did we start our prevention work. Because truly, we want the kids to stay in their homes in a healthy environment, because we found through the years, when kids are removed from their home, everything that they're doing is working to go back to that home. So why not invest our time and our energy up front and keeping them there and offering the supportive services to the families, because ultimately that's what kids need. There's always going to be a need to take kids out of their home because bad things happen. But the largest majority of people with wraparound services and with support, they can heal, and we can offer them that hope again.
And you know, you talk about wraparound services. One of the things that you mentioned, and it's a statement that gets a lot of attention, is sex trafficking. And I think it's important for our viewing audience to understand that sex trafficking and that issue is really a derivative of the abuse and neglect issue, because the children that live in these environments will wind up in areas like sex trafficking because of the path that their life is on.
Right, they're looking for unconditional love, and if you don't know unconditional love, people want unconditional love, and so they're just searching and trying to find connections, and they're unhealthy connections. So what we do is we have survivors of child sex trafficking that are pregnant and or parenting at our facility. So what's so beautiful to me about that program is there we truly have a family unit. We have that mom and her baby, and we can teach them things to bond so that their bond is a healthy bond going forward, and get them so they're not bonded to their trafficker. And so it takes again just that everyday basic level consistent giving them voice, value them for who they are, teaching them that there's more to that they have a purpose in this life, and we're going to help them to find that purpose.
And I think one of the things that is so important is for people to understand your work is to give proper definition and context to words like love and care.
Purpose.
Because, you know, these young ladies, these young people, they heard those words from their abusers.
Oh, sure.
They were abused, and then the abuser would say, I love you. And they were mistreated, and at the end of the mistreatment, they would say, I do this to you because I love you.
That's right.
And whenever you're in such an impressionable and formative stage of your life as a child, you grow up thinking, well, that must be what love looks like, that must be what love feels like, and that must be what love does. And so this is why you have a cycle for the last 30 years where you start to see these problems evolve, and now you need to go in and start even working in the home to say, look, this cycle can be broken, it doesn't need to start. And in the cases where it does happen, we need to redefine what the truth is about love, about hope, and about care.
That's absolutely right, Pastor Matt. And I will also add to that so many times these girls that come to us, they themselves don't even know that they're being child sex trafficked, because their abuser, because their trafficker are telling them just those exact words, and they don't actually know what real love and care is. And so we do a lot of testing up front with them. We do a tool to help them identify, and then really we have to teach them often that this is what's happening, because they themselves don't even know. And through the history of our organization, truth be told, we didn't know. Went back to several years ago, we didn't even understand what was happening. These young ladies would come in pregnant, they would talk about their boyfriend, we started realizing, wait a minute, this boyfriend he's not the same age as you, and there's just so many different things, and so we've evolved so much as an organization, and then as society. Now we know what to look for, we know signs, and the audience and everybody needs to know that it does happen, and if you see something, say something. If something doesn't look right, report it. Because there's people that can help, and if you're wrong, that's okay.
It's okay.
That's okay.
Absolutely.
If you're going in with good intent and goodwill, say something, because it's going to take everybody working together to save these children.
When we come back, we're going to discuss how we can all work together with a young lady who's doing exactly that. You don't want to miss this issue, because it's something that's closer to you than you want to imagine. It affects every city, it affects our nation, but it's something we can change and make a difference. You're watching The Difference.
And when we come back,
we walk into our local strip clubs, into our modern day brothels, which are illicit massage businesses. We walk into our porn shops, and we reach the women and children that we see inside of these commercial sex industry businesses.
God's law is eternal. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Our children are the heritage of the Lord. As we build a nation for future generations, I ask you this question. Are you ensuring your children have a strong relationship with Christ?
For your support this month, you'll receive Pastor Matt's new Working on a Building album and the Dream Journal. For your generous gift of $200 or more, you will also receive a special vinyl edition of the Working on a Building album, a behind-the-scenes video, a high-quality Pledge of Allegiance wall art, and an engraved paver that will be displayed on the grounds of Hagee Ministries.
Begin today to fill your children with the gospel of Jesus Christ, for they are the leaders of tomorrow.
Send your gift today. Call the number on your screen or visit jhm.org/build.
I'm Lisa Michelle. My childhood was very broken. My dad was an abusive alcoholic, and he owned a bar. And I ended up being sexually abused by him from the time my first memory was 4 years old. So growing up in that scene and being around alcohol and drugs, it was so hard on me, and I just leaned right into that whole lifestyle as I finally started to feel empty on the inside. I felt used, and I felt broken inside, and I didn't know where this feeling was starting to rise up in me, but I started to do this soul searching. And my sister's doing nails in that salon, and I'm walking by her station, and she's doing a manicure on one of her male clients. And he reaches out to me and he said, "Hey, Lisa, I'd like to invite you to church this Sunday." I said, "Me? Church? Why would you invite a girl like me to church? Girls like me don't go to church." I was so dumbfounded by why he would ask me to go to church. And the pastor had an altar call, and back then you just stood up in your chair, and I stood up in my chair, and the whole church knew that I was giving my life to the Lord because I was so excited. I was like, "That's me, I'm a sinner, I give my life to the Lord." I cannot believe the more I heard about this daddy and that he accepted me and that he wanted me and he adopted me and that I could be in his kingdom, I just thought, where do I sign up? It makes me feel really proud to know that I know who I am and whose I am, and that I have a purpose and a plan in my life.
Lisa, you know, Tara speaks about the work that they're doing at SJRC Texas, and really I kind of see that as being involved in some of the after effects of the situation that you grew up in.
Right.
And I hear your story, and what I really wanted to say before we even got into the questions was, you know, the Bible talks about all things working together for good.
Right.
One of the things that makes people uncomfortable about talking about abuse and sex trafficking is they don't have a context for it. They don't have any familiarity with the space. You grew up in that space, so you don't have all of the you know, challenges of addressing it that others would because you're familiar with it.
Right.
You can walk into a place where you see this type of abuse and you recognize it for what it is, and you know who needs to be rescued, as opposed to somebody who says, "I don't even know how to identify the victim from the perpetrator at this point." And so it takes all kinds of people to address this issue. And what is the work that you're doing on a daily basis to help people with this issue?
Right, so here in San Antonio, we walk into our local strip clubs, into our modern day brothels, which are illicit massage businesses. We walk into our porn shops and we reach the women and children that we see inside of these commercial sex industry businesses. And we meet them and give them a gift and let them know that they're loved, they're valued, and that they're cared for. And just like you said, there is this gift that's in me because of my lifestyle, because of the abuse I went through, and because of my background. It's a gift that God gives me that I can see the one.
And you reach those young ladies in very specific ways. You'll walk in and I remember you shared a testimony, you walk in sometimes with a box of donuts.
Yeah, we come in with cupcakes
So
and
how do you
cookies.
develop their trust or their, how do they, I know, do you
Krispy
give them
Kreme goes a
something?
long way.
We bring in Thanksgiving dinner.
Wow.
We bring in Christmas gifts. Yeah,
Treat them like human beings.
Absolutely, and meet them right where their needs are at, for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, during COVID, we fed over 25 single moms and brought food to their home and fed them and their children. So meeting those tangible needs in such a dark time, too, has built deep relationship with the girls.
And so, in some cases, those are individuals that they're in an adult phase of their life. They've had an abused childhood, and they're currently involved in this lifestyle, not knowing how they can get out of it. How often do you engage children that are in this situation and they're trafficked and they need to be taken out of this situation into a place like SJRC?
Yeah, a few years ago, I had the honor to work in our juvenile system for girls that were incarcerated, that were domestic trafficked right here in our backyard in San Antonio. So throughout those years of being in the juvenile correctional facilities, I built relationships with the girls that are in there, and then it's trickled on. And then we work with other organizations, and it's amazing. I mean, the children that we work with today, building that relationship for 4 to 5 years and just continually helping them to grow through their healing process as well.
You mentioned an organization. What's the name of your organization?
No Strings Attached.
No Strings Attached. Now, how'd
Yeah.
you come to that? How did you come to that definition, that title?
Yeah, we want to provide a tangible way to love everybody that we encounter with no strings attached. So we bring gifts to the girls in the clubs and just in a practical way, loving them.
Is there somebody watching? How can they get involved with y'all's organization? How can they help? How can they pray for the girls or the young children that are there?
How does somebody support the work? Because I know that there's people who are watching, they say, I could never do what Lisa does.
But I want
to help do what Lisa does so that young ladies don't have to live like that.
Right. So nsagirls.org is the best way to get a hold of us and email us and let us know.
NSA, not National Security
Exactly.
Advisory, but no strings attached girls.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, when we come back, I want to visit with Tara and Lisa together as we discuss how broad this issue is, not just in our area, but all over the United States, and what we can do about it. You're watching The Difference. Thank you for joining us today.
And coming up next,
The way that these people get in is through they're searching for something else. And these traffickers, these perpetrators, they know that, and they hone in on that, and they will use the vulnerability that these kids and these young women are looking for and groom it. They're grooming.
Absolute power can transform every one of your problems into an opportunity for success. Absolute power will make the impossible possible. Sorrow becomes joy, defeat becomes victory, stress becomes peace, and doubt becomes faith in God.
Available at jhm.org or amazon.com.
Here at Hagee Ministries, we are excited to announce the new digital and web platforms that provide you with live streaming services, special messages, and series, all through our video-on-demand applications. Our Hagee Ministries channel app is now available on Apple TV, Amazon, and Roku streaming platforms. You can also watch our services live on your favorite social media channels, including YouTube, Facebook, or online at jhm.org/watch.
Welcome back. You're watching The Difference. We've been having a conversation with Lisa and Tara about bringing hope and healing to young people who have been abused, abandoned, and neglected. Tara and Lisa, this question is kind of for both of you because you see it from so many different perspectives. We talk about the issues of child abuse, neglect, and then the symptoms and situations that are involved in sex trafficking. How large is this issue?
I was going to say, especially here in San Antonio.
Yeah. Go ahead, I'll add to it.
For me, when I moved here 8 years ago, I was shocked at what I was seeing. I went out on the streets into our illicit massage businesses, into our strip clubs and the porn shops and on the streets, and I was shocked at what I saw. For the first time walking into a massage parlor and seeing women with all lingerie on, this is something you see in a third world country, not in San Antonio, Texas. So for me, I was shocked, literally.
And you mentioned walking in. it doesn't sound like you had to look hard to find it.
No.
Yeah. So how big is this issue?
I think I'll add to that, and I agree with everything Lisa said. You know, I think, though, sometimes our perceptions of how we get here are a little skewed. I think people think that maybe they snatch kids off the street, and certainly that happens. But that's not the way that it really happens. It's through the way that these people get in is through they're searching for something else. And these traffickers, these perpetrators, they know that, and they hone in on that, and they will use the vulnerability that these kids and these young women are looking for and groom it. They're grooming.
It's really a predatory kind of a thing.
Yes, and so sure, it does happen. Snatched off the street, yes, but the large majority is something that takes, it happens in your backyard. It's not a certain side of town.
It's
a process, yes, and it does not discriminate in any family, in any situation. It is everywhere, but it can be something that as a society and as groups that are working, partnering together, teaching to this, learning about it, talking about it, as you mentioned earlier. It's not a fun subject to talk about.
It's not a fun
subject. But you have to talk about it, be aware, and know that it can happen in any family.
Well, and you mentioned any family. I'm thankful that you did, because as a pastor, I've had people in our church come in and discuss this with members of their family, and there's always this shroud of shame. There's always this, you know, I mean, when somebody walks in and they say, my son's addicted to drugs, they've either become so familiar with that in society, or, you know, there's enough situations like that are being discussed that they don't have a problem disclosing that need. But when they say, I haven't seen my daughter in 6 months and I'm afraid she's been trafficked, you know, they're terrified to share it, because there's this concept of shame that goes with it. And the thing that I really am trying to pull out of the conversation is, as you mentioned, it's happening in your backyard. It's happening on the social media platform. It's happening when you're not watching because you're not aware of what to watch for. And then someday this occurs and you go, oh my goodness, what happened? What did I miss?
That's right. And I think Lisa mentioned it and I mentioned it and you guys have mentioned it. I think the key that through all of it is relationship. Relationships, positive, healthy relationships can prevent it and can also heal it.
Correct.
People need to just be aware and not be shameful and not be scared to mention it and talk about it. And if and when it hits your home, your family, your environment, reach out for help.
I think that there's parents who are watching and they're growing up in a world where, you know, the word privacy gets thrown around in a lot of places. It doesn't apply.
Yes, right.
What do you say to parents that, you know, feel like, well, I would be intruding in my child's life if I took the time to really,
go through
you know,
their phone,
go through their phone or find out who they're
contacts.
talking to, or...
I mean, I have teenagers. I'm raising 2 teenagers
God
right
bless
now.
you.
Yes. Pray for me, please, on that specifically. But truly, it's about, again, relationship. I keep saying that word, and trust. And so, sure, I trust my children, but that doesn't mean that they have a right to privacy. They're children in my home. I can look at their phone. I pay for their phone.
That's right.
So I look at their phone.
Pay for your air
and it
conditioning.
doesn't mean that I don't trust them. I do trust them. I don't trust everybody else,
I don't
though. I don't trust
That's
other
right.
people.
I don't trust the world that the phone gives you access to.
That's right. And so we're going to build on that trust. We're going to build that relationship. We're going to have conversations. We're going to talk about friends lists. We're going to say who's on your Snapchat. You know, just have those conversations, and then just keep talking. And let them know that there's nothing that they can bring to me as a parent, to my husband, as a father, that's going to scare us. There's nothing that's going to hurt us. Bring it all. Let's have a conversation. It's safe. Let's talk about it, because those people that are telling them, they're telling them otherwise, and they're telling them keep secrets and don't tell your parents. And you know, and if they're
you have to hide this.
That's right. And if kids are fearful of bringing things to their parents, they're afraid they're going to get in trouble, then they may hold back. And so it's just that open, safe conversation of support that is ongoing all the time. I find the best conversations are in the car because they're a captive audience that can't get anywhere. That's right. And you don't have to make eye contact either if it's an uncomfortable thing. I look at the road and you're looking this way. And that but really having that open dialogue all the time. Don't wait till it's too late.
And Lisa, you know, you've heard Tara talk about it happens at all levels. You mentioned specifically you're walking into places that a lot of people don't want to go. They don't want to go into a strip club. They don't want to go into a massage parlor. But how many young ladies do you find in those places that didn't grow up like you grew up? You know, your stories, I grew up in a Hell's Angel bar. I grew up in this life. How many of them do you find that didn't grow up in that life but fell into it?
Actually, we would like to get the hard numbers on that because we do find a majority of the women that we meet are pastors' children's. Pastors' children.
Or in the church. Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
they grew up in a better environment than the one that they're in.
Right, and sometimes I've heard the girls say, I just wanted to see what this life was like. I wanted to dabble in it because I grew up in this really strict home with all these rules, and I just felt like I just want to see what it's like on this other side. And then when we walk in, and we're there as a ministry and as God's love, and they see that and they're like, okay, God is actually coming right for me, right here in this darkness. And it's a divine appointment. So we believe they don't belong there.
You know, this is such a huge issue that one program doesn't really give it the justice that it needs. If somebody is looking for more information about how they can help SJRC, and how they can be a part of either volunteering, recommending, referring, where do they need to go?
So everything is on our website, www.sjrctexas.org. We have a wish list there. We have our volunteer. You know, and as you mentioned earlier, not everybody can do everything. Not everybody can open their heart and their home. But everybody can do something, just that one thing. If donating clothes, I mean, it all matters.
Well, and you mentioned it earlier in the program, you're 24/7. 365. So there are seasons and times of years. There's Christmas, there's Thanksgiving,
yes, everybody has a birthday.
There's points where we can all jump in and say, you know what, I can't be there 12 months out of the year, but I can serve in this moment.
That's right, and there's always opportunities for that. And I think people just sometimes think, well, gosh, I can't do much. You know, it's so small, but all the little things matter. Nothing's too small.
Absolutely, and you know, I think that everybody doing their part is how you accomplish impacting and changing this entire environment.
And it all matters. I don't want anybody to minimize what they do. Everything, just do something, everything matters.
And you know, Lisa, you mentioned the work that you're doing. I know that there are people who are watching that are certainly familiar with that environment. If they know someone who needs help, if they want something that they can specifically reach out and be a part of what you're doing, where do they need to go?
LisaMichelle.org is my website, but nsagirls.org is the one for the girls that
are no strings attached.
Yeah, for no strings attached. Yes.
Well, I want to thank you both for being here today. Kendall and I will be right back after this.
The life of a child is precious in God's eyes, and the gift of life is something you can become a part of today. We at Hagee Ministries are offering you the opportunity to change the life of a child and mother by becoming a legacy partner. As a legacy partner, your monthly gift supports the Sanctuary of Hope, that is a one-of-a-kind safe haven that provides a home to single expectant mothers and offers resources that will enable them to find success in their communities. The Sanctuary of Hope exists to provide a loving, safe environment where both baby and mother can receive the education, care, and hope they so desperately need. When you partner with us, our legacy becomes your legacy, and together we are impacting lives and transforming nations for Jesus Christ. There has never been a better time to share the love of Christ with a mother and a child than right now. Become a legacy partner today. Call the number on the screen or go to jhm.org/partner.
Kendall and I want to thank you for joining us for today's program. We want you to know that organizations like SJRC and Lisa Michelle, No Strings Attached, they all need individuals like you to give them the opportunity to do the fantastic work that God has called them to. God bless you, and thank you for making a difference.